Hello there. I've been watching a lot of compass and map navigation videos because most of you, if you watch my channel, know that I am trying to learn how to navigate with a map and a compass as opposed to navigating without a compass, which is what I have done most of my life. So when I look at these videos, at first I was fairly confused because I had videos that had two different techniques of finding a bearing or taking a bearing off of a map. And they looked so completely different that I could not believe they would both work. They looked like they were the exact opposite of each other. And so what I want to do is I want to demonstrate these methods and then show you what I have found, because I don't think anyone is actually explaining the difference between the two. You've got one group that does it this way and one group that does it that way, and they don't talk about the other group. So anyway, before I do that, I need to show you this compass and try to explain to you the different parts of it so that you understand what I'm talking about when I get into this video. This is a Suunto A10 compass. It's probably their least expensive compass. It's bottom of the line basic. I really don't need anything else. But we're going to look at this basic base plate compass and the features on it so that when I begin to explain, you will be able to understand if you don't already know. If you look right here, that's called the direction of travel arrow. This little red diamond, or I'm sorry, triangle. And if you look at this red arrow here, that is the magnetic needle. That points to magnetic north. No matter where I turn this, that needle is going to point to magnetic north. And you have a bezel that turns, and it has from 0 to 360 degrees in divisions of 2 degrees, from 0 to 360. So what you're doing is basically you're describing a 360 degree circle, or the compass is describing a 360 degree circle from your position in the center of the compass. This is called the magnetic needle. Okay. There's a red arrow here this is called the orienteering arrow. And if you see, I don't know if you can see or not, but there are red lines going, if I turn to this north, and north on this map is represented that way, okay? There are red lines pointing the same way that orienteering arrow is pointing. They are meant to work in conjunction with these lines on a map, okay? These are grid lines, and they run from south to north on the map. Now, that's a representation of south and north. And these lines are a representation of true north. So this map is meant, or this map and this compass are meant to work together, because I can take this compass, and if you look, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. There's one of the black grid lines, and you see there's a red orienteering line here and one here, and that grid line's in the middle. I can move that so that I can line those grid lines, those red orienteering lines, up with this grid line. And that is the premise of the first technique we're going to use, or that I'm going to show you. The first technique that I see on YouTube here, when they teach you how to find a bearing on a map or take a bearing from a map, is this. This is Hardscrabble Mountain. I'm going to assume this says 1,160 feet. So I'm going to assume that this point here is the summit of Hardscrabble Mountain, because this is a lower elevation and this is a mountain. Okay, so it has a high summit here and a smaller hill here. And what I want to do, let's say that I want to go from the summit of Hardscrabble Mountain to this body of water here, this little lake or pond or whatever that is. There's no name for it, but that is a body of water. Okay, now there's a dot here. I don't know for sure. That might be a house or something of the sort. Okay, because if you look up here, I know this area, these were all houses and stores and things like that. Okay, so I'm assuming there's a house here, but I want to go from here, let's just say for the sake of it, like the center of this lake. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this mark and the little mark that I made on the summit of Hardscrabble Mountain as bearing points from here to here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my compass and I'm going to lay it along this line. And along that line. And the first technique that they will tell you is to take this bezel and turn it to the north, understanding these grid lines represent grid north. Okay, I'm going to take these. I lost my place. Okay, here. And I'm going to turn them to the north. I'm not going to pay any attention to whether this orienteering arrow is in line with the magnetic needle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this up until it looks to me like those lines are lined up with the north-south grid lines of the map. They would tell you that your bearing is right here. Okay, and they would not mention anything about putting this red needle and into this orienteering arrow. As long as these lines are lined up with the grid lines, your bearing, this is your bearing, and the bearing that says that is 92 degrees. Now for the second method. Okay, we're Hardscrabble Mountain here, and we're going to use this house to line up with this body of water, this little lake or pond. Okay. They will tell you to do the same thing. You want to line these 2 points up, and then what they would tell you is turn the bezel until the orienteering arrow and the magnetic needle line up. In other words, they would say something like, put the dog in the doghouse, put red in the shed, something like that. And they would say, that's your bearing, right? You notice that's lined up now, correct? And I get a bearing of 92 degrees. Same exact bearing. So how can it be that if I put that in one method, this arrow lines up with a magnetic needle, and in the other method, it doesn't? And how can they both be right? Well, it comes to this. If I lay this compass along this grid line, if I move this to north, unless I've moved the table a little bit that this is sitting on, if I set this along the grid north lines, you see that that compass lines up now, right? Before, I was at a different angle. In other words, the map and the compass, let me do that, we're not oriented together, okay? So now I've turned that again. It's not oriented together, right? So let's measure it again just for giggles. Let's put that there. And I'm going to use the orienteering line method. I'm going to turn this north until the orienteering lines line up with the grid north lines. And once again, I have 92 degrees. All right. Now, if I were to orient this map and do that again, I would still get 92 degrees. It's obvious that you don't have to orient your map. So why do people do it? I'll talk to you about that in a second, but I want to show you how it's done first. Now, I'm not accounting for magnetic declination, which is a subject that you can either look up, or maybe later, if people are interested, I'll do a video on that. I'm just using magnetic north. I'm not accounting for any deviation because of declination. So if you look, right now, this map and this compass are not lined up, because what I've done is I've laid this along that grid line going north. I've laid the edge of my compass along that, and the needle and the doghouse, or the needle and the orienteering arrow, are not aligned. Now, if I turn my map, now they're aligned, and my compass is oriented to my map, which is oriented to the area around us, or around me. Okay. When you see these guys where they go, well, put the red needle in the red housing, or in the red arrow, or however they say it, put the dog in the doghouse, put red in the shed, okay? They are orienting their maps. And if you watch them, most of the time they will take great pains to explain to you how to orient that map. They will also take great pains to show you how to compensate for declination. The ones that use these orienteering arrows or orienteering lines in the compass and line them up with the grid lines on the map, they're not orienting the map. So how can that possibly work? Well, because if you're taking a bearing, what you're doing is, say you are right here. Remember I said that the compass, you're sitting in the center of the compass, and there's a 360-degree circle around you that covers every degree on this compass, okay? A full circle. So when you take a bearing on a map, what you're actually measuring is the angle between here and here. And it does not matter whether I have my compass and my map oriented together with the environment. I'm going to get the same blooming bearing if I use these orienteering lines, because I'm lining instead of lining the compass and the orienteering arrow and the red needle, instead of lining that magnetic needle and the orienteering arrow up like that, what I'm doing is I'm ignoring that orienteering arrow, but I'm using the orienteering lines in this compass to line it straight up. So even though it's not oriented, when I turn this way, it actually kind of sort of is. And so I will get the same bearing because it's a measurement of angle from where I am to where I want to be. Okay? So why should I orient a map if it doesn't matter? Here's the thing. If I'm looking on this map is a 2D representation of a 3D environment. All of these markings and everything on this show me how high or how low something is in the environment. They show me where the wooded areas are. They show me major roads and minor roads. They show me water. They show me open areas. This has even got houses marked. Now this map was done in '94, so a lot of these, there's a lot more houses here now. Okay, this is an older map. But the point of it is that I'm looking at a flat surface. And if I want to find this body, if I'm on the top of Hardscrabble Mountain and I want to find this, if my map is not lined up, okay, it's not lined up, right? So I'm looking like that, and I'm looking for that mountain over here, okay? Or I'm looking for that body of water, rather, in that direction, right? But if I line my compass up with that grid line and orient my compass and my map to that, now, instead of looking over here for this body of water, I'm looking over here where it is. Can you take a bearing on a map without orienting? Yeah, you can. But for me, when I look down at the map and I need to find the features on that map to correspond to what I'm looking at around me, it's a whole lot easier and a whole lot more simple for me to just say, the thing that I'm looking for on the map is over there, so I'm going to go and look over there. And I'll find it a whole lot easier because the map is oriented with my surroundings and I know exactly where to look for it. That's why I would always orient a map. But do you have to? No. Both of them work. So now that you know, you can make your own decisions about that. I don't think there's a right or wrong. There's a right for me, and it's that I would orient my map. But I wanted to bring this to your attention because I saw it over and over. I would see one guy, and I would say, well, that guy, he looks and sounds like he knows exactly what he's talking about. And he would show me one way, and then I would look at other people. I'm not going to name them because I'm not trying to draw anybody into any kind of arguments or any kind of discussions. I'm just showing you what I found so that if you run across it, you won't be confused. You'll understand what's going on because nobody's telling people why these two methods are so different and yet they both work. Okay. But I've seen other people that I trust, and they would show me another way. And the ones that I watch that I trust, they're orienting their maps and putting the orienting arrow underneath the magnetic needle. Okay, and so the other guy. There's one specific guy that I watch that uses the other method. Okay, and I trust him. I've watched pretty much his whole catalog. I'm pretty sure he knows exactly what he's doing. But he has of the opinion that you shouldn't even worry about orienting your map. I disagree with that because I want everything around me to work seamlessly without having to figure too much, because there's enough going to be going on when I'm navigating that could confuse me without adding to confusion by not orienting my map so that the things on my map are in the same direction I'm going to look for them on the map. I'm going to look down at that map. I'm going to go, okay, the river's over there. Boom. That kind of deal. It just, to me, makes a whole lot more sense to do it that way. But now that you know, you can do it however you want to. What I would do is I would caution you to make absolutely sure you know what you're doing and that you trust the system you're using. Because I'm going to be moving from maps in my house or maps out back in my backyard, messing around with them, taking bearings, trying to figure things out, stuff like that, to eventually using a map in the area the map comes from or that the map represents and trying to navigate that way. So I want to settle for myself immediately how I'm going to approach it so that I don't have any questions or anything, any tag ends hanging on that I haven't resolved before I get out someplace where it counts. So thanks for watching. Bless you. I'll talk to you later.